Okay, and should be counting down. And another few seconds and we should be good to go.
Anticipation.
You guys have a little, there we go. See, we have a little button that says live at this point. Perfect. So we're ready to go?
Yeah.
Sure.
Hey, no bathroom breaks or anything?
Not yet.
I always need a bathroom break. So if I run out or something, just go amongst yourselves. So hi to everybody who's joining us tonight. Thank you so much for being with us. This is the Command Post, and we are coming at you from, actually, Together We Stand headquarters tonight. We've been here packaging 2,500 gift packages for our Operation Care package. We have them going out to family members who have a loved one deployed overseas during the holiday season. So we have been here over the past few days packing as many care packages as we can with very few volunteers because of COVID restrictions this year. So it's taken us a little bit longer, but our volunteers are incredible. I'm so excited tonight. So actually, I haven't introduced myself. So I'm Stephanie Shapiro, and Together We Stand is a foundation that aims to honor, recognize, and support Canadian military families. I'm really excited today. I'm really excited about the topic. And I'm really excited for my guest today. I have retired Private Matt Anderson with us, and I have Polliann Maher with us, who's going to be joining us to talk about operational stress injuries. So thank you to the two of you for being with me today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So I know you're drinking your tea. I'm judging a little bit because I'm going to.
I got little ones that I have to worry about.
I mean, I do too, but that's future Stephanie's problem. I'll deal with that like an hour from now when we're off the show. So in the meantime, in the meantime, I always say like having a glass of wine makes me a more a nicer mom.
That's one way to put it.
That's right. So we're going to talk about operational stress injuries today, and this is a really interesting topic for me. I actually had to do a little bit of research on this because I didn't understand what an operational stress injury was. I always just thought that individuals had either were injured or had PTSD. So maybe before we do anything, we talk about your background. Can somebody, I mean, you guys are total subject matter experts in this. Can you guys give me a rundown in terms of what an operational stress injury technically is?
Go ahead,
and I'll put it to Matt or Polly at this point.
He's looking at me. So an operational stress injury was actually coined by the military. So it's actually not a formal diagnosis. It's an umbrella term that we use to envelope any psychological injury due to service related. So could be a deployment, could be harassment, could be training exercise, anything that an event that you went through that is service related that has affected your mental health. So under that umbrella of operational stress injury could be a diagnosis of PTSD, could be depression, could be anxiety. So we envelope them all into operational stress injury.
So for a civilian population, if they had some sort of PTSD or depression or anxiety, it would be classified as that. But because they are experiencing this as a result of their service, it's considered an operational stress.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for clarifying that. Before we get into any questions, I would love it if the two of you would give me a little bit about your background and how you became part of the military community. So, Polly, I'm going to ask you first,
Sure.
if you don't mind, what your history is and sort of from the beginning to where you are today.
Sure. So I did know my spouse prior to him going in the military. We actually went to high school together, but didn't date. So we met after he was in the service, started dating, had a long distance relationship because he was posted to Germany about a month after we started dating. And then in 1991, we got married in Germany. So he was posted to Germany. Then from there, we were posted to Ottawa. And then in 94, we were posted to Petawawa. And that's when he started to do his workup to go on a UN tour to Bosnia. He was in the Armored Corps with the RCDs in Petawawa. And so he did a tour from October 94 to the end of April 95. And during that time, I was pregnant for our second son, and he was born about 3 weeks after Sean came home from Bosnia. And for Sean, it was sort of a transition time in regards to it was end of contract, so he had to make a decision whether he was going to resign to stay in the military for his remainder 14 years or whether he was going to get out. And at the time, it was the 90s. There was a lot of cutbacks within the military. You couldn't remuster. So he decided to get out, so that way they would still pay for our move, and we had a young family, obviously, so we moved back to the Stony Creek area where we're from. And he anticipated that he would go police, fire, um, corrections officer, and did testing for both fire and corrections. But that didn't go through. Again, cuts and different things, hiring women, hiring ethnicity. So he ended up in a factory. And about 6 months after releasing, that's when sort of the symptoms started for him. And they started fairly, I guess, looking back, kind of blunt, but again, I didn't really know because we didn't talk about anything related to tours back then. So, he would sleep with a knife under his pillow. He would check the door locks. He would wake up and say, "Do you smell that?" And have to go around the house checking things. He was like hyper vigilant about things. And so to combat and be able to go to work and stuff, he started to self-medicate because that would get him through the day, and he would be able to work. But it didn't do too well for our family life. So there was lots of conflict in there and stuff. And about 4 years after sort of everything started, and he did go to our family doctor, who just gave him sleeping pills and said, again, there was no connection back then to the military service until he met a veteran in a bar who is a really good friend of ours now. But at the time, he just started to ask him questions about, how was he sleeping? Was he angry? All of these things. And he was like, you're in my head. He's like, you need to come to Veterans Affairs with me. And he's like, I'm 31. Like, I'm not a veteran. And he's like, nope, you got to come. And, that was the start of our journey. And that was June of 1999 when he was diagnosed. And it's been a roller coaster since then. Some years not so great. But we're really in a healthier part of our journey now. And so in 2009, I was able to take the VOC part of the VOC rehab plan through Veterans Affairs because Sean was unable to go to school. So I went back to school to become a community service worker. I started volunteering with OSIS, the Operational Stress Injury Social Support Program. And in 2011, I was hired as a family peer support coordinator for Southwestern Ontario. So I've been with the program now for 9 years. And for me, that was where I found my community. That was where I found my tribe. People that I didn't have to explain what was going on in my house because they could understand because they were living it as well. So peer support's been a big part of my life in the last 10 years.
So I want to ask a couple questions. Number one, was there a particular situation that triggered the trauma that your husband had been experiencing, or was it just the fact that he had served, or what was it and was it PTSD, or was it depression, or was it anxiety, or was it all of the above?
So he was diagnosed with PTSD. He does suffer with depression and anxiety as well. Usually, tends to go along with PTSD. I wouldn't say it's one particular incident. What happens, especially with things, it's an accumulation over time. So when we talk about PTSD and stuff, there's an actual event, but there could be several events, small events that accumulate. And then there's also sort of that wear and tear that creates a sort of a fatigue on, your mental health. There's also a grief piece that goes along with it, the grief of getting out of the military, transitioning. I'm sure Matt can speak to that piece. And then the biggest one, which is becoming more popular now, is the moral injury. And, when you're in war or when you're a UN peacekeeper, rules of engagement are different. So you're there to do a job, but you may see a lot of other atrocities, but morally you can't do anything about those. So it's really about sort of understanding that. Again, it took me a long time to understand. I always say it's like peeling an onion, you're to get to it. And I mean, my husband still shares some things 25 years later with me that he's never shared with me before. So,
I have so many questions for you, but before
you got to get to Matt.
Before I ask you my questions, Matt, tell me how you became part of the military community and what your journey.
Could you say that again? Sorry, it cut out.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah. I had to turn it.
I want to know what your experience is being part of the military community and kind of how you got into it and where you are now.
Okay, so I ended up joining up in 07. I think it was 18 when I did the paperwork, just a kid that needed some direction, I would say. Ended up getting in, and then ended up getting posted to 2RCR in 2000. I want to say.
And for those of us who are watching that don't speak military, 2RCR is?
2nd Battalion of the Royal Canadian Regiment, which is an infantry group. Infantry regiment. So I ended up getting posted there sometime in the beginning of 2008. And I was so gung-ho to go overseas. I wanted to go to Afghanistan. That was the whole point of joining the military and then going through the training. Even in Meaford, most people were slotted to go to 1 and 3 RCR, which is in Petawawa. And a couple of us were like, where are we going to end up going to Afghanistan first? We got told that there was a tour coming up that Gulf Company and 2RCR might need some guys. So I think 5 of us ended up going to Gagetown instead of Petawawa in hopes of going to Afghanistan. And then when we got there, we didn't get put into Gulf Company right away. I got put into a hotel company. And then we knew that Gulf Company was going overseas, and then it started coming about that they would need guys for a replacement pool. So what they do is they have a reserve of guys just in case someone gets injured, gets in trouble, fails a drug test, anything like that. Then they have a reserve of guys who are trained, ready to go overseas to replace those guys. So then I asked to go over for that, got selected to go over. And there's, I think, 30 of us. And then we got ranked 1 to 30. So then I ended up getting selected as number 2.
How do you get ranked, Matt?
How?
Yeah.
I think it was just based on if they thought that you deserved to go overseas. Like, it's really a merit system. It's not like the States where you're kind of like, everyone's going, you don't really have a choice. In Canada, it's quite the opposite. Everyone's wanting to go and there's not enough spots for everyone. So it's, you're almost fighting to get the tours. So then I ended up number 2 on the list. And as we got closer to the date, I think someone might have failed a drug test or got injured. So the number 1 spot, someone ended up going. And then, so now I'm number 1, ready to go. And it was sometime in August, the end of August. I get a phone call. I'm having a nap after work. And I have friends over. And they're like, your phone's just ringing off the hook. So I picked it up and they're like, do you got your kit ready or you sorted out? And I was like, yeah, I'm good. And they're like, all right, well, you're going to Afghanistan on Monday. And I think that was Thursday or Friday. So I flew home. And this whole time I'm telling my mom, like, I don't think it'll happen. Like, I'm in this reserve pool. What are the odds? So on and so forth. And then I texted.
How old are you at this point, Matt?
I think I was 21. Okay.
Like a baby. So your mother is not wanting you to go at 21 years old.
Not at all. No, she didn't even think that I would get into the military because I have color blindness. So it's only with shades though. So I still got in. So from the beginning, everything that I was pursuing, she was like, there's not a hope that it's going to happen. And then we get to the point that now I'm going overseas. So I ended up going home, seeing my family and stuff like that very briefly, and then go to Afghanistan. And I mean, I can just kind of skip right to, there were some minor incidents. Well, not minor, but given the situation in a war zone, there were some minor incidents, like our sister platoon got into a heavy firefight. We had a suicide.
Do me a favor, don't skip over that, because when we talked, you told me just a really powerful and moving story, and I think it's so relevant to where you are today. So tell me about, don't skip over it. Tell me about sort of what led up to this incident and what happened.
Yeah, so I mean, to tie it all together, that's really impactful. I think what you're talking about is Tom, and Remembrance Day in 2008, we got called out for what's called QRF. It's a quick reaction force, so it's civilians or allies will call in.
Tell me about a month before when you were talking to Tom.
Yeah, that's Remembrance Day. We get called out for this IED. We end up going and exploiting it. We come back and it was early morning, so we still had time to get ready. And they're like, "Go clean up, and you can go do the parade for Remembrance Day still at Camp Nathan Smith." So we go to our rooms, and for whatever reason, Tom was in our room, and I was complaining the whole time, just like, "Isn't it enough that we're in a war zone? Now we got to go clean up and do this parade." And it was Tom's third tour in Afghanistan. He was really well respected. He should have been a higher rank than corporal. And he came over and sat on my bed and put his arm around me, and he was like, "When you've been in the military a little bit longer, you'll start to lose friends, and this day will mean a lot more to you." And I was like, okay, kind of like, I'll listen and shut my mouth now and kind of go. So that was November 11th. And then December 13th, we got an early wake-up call, another QRF call, IED, improvised explosive device. We're getting ready to go, and they said that they don't have eyes on, so like no UAV, there's nobody cordoning off the area. Don't really know what's going on. It's a little bit chaotic. So they're like, "Go eat breakfast and come back, and hopefully we'll have it figured out by then." And we start coming back, and we only rolled with 4 vehicles. So there was a 5th vehicle getting ready, and it was Tom's vehicle, and they usually didn't roll with us. So I remember asking him, like, what's going on? What are you doing? And he, like, some smarters comment, like, "Someone good looking has to go with you guys." So you just kind of brush it off, go get ready. And then I'm pretty sure the reason that we brought another vehicle is because in that area we got shot at, I think, the week before. So it was just beefing up security kind of thing. So my vehicle that day was supposed to be rolling out first, and their section is Alpha, so number 1 kind of thing. And as we're rolling out, their sergeant's like, "We're Alpha, we take the lead," kind of thing, and bumps our vehicle to the rear. So now I'm standing what's called air sentry in the lab. So it's doing rear security for the whole patrol, really. There's 2 of us. And our whole job is to wave back traffic. And if people get too close, do your warning signals, fire a warning shot, whatever you have to do for them to back off. And we got to a security checkpoint, and we rolled through, and we checked culverts. So you roll up, guys go and look in, and then you pick them back up. And so we're getting closer and closer to where this IED is supposed to be. And this dump truck comes out and starts blocking traffic. And that right there is like a telltale sign for us that something's not right. This whole time on, I think, our left side, there was motorcycle going up and down too, which is another sign of there's something going on, someone's keeping eyes on you kind of thing. But because nothing too big had happened up to that point, I didn't want to say anything. And I thought the person beside me might say something first, because there's still that testosterone ego kind of thing. Like, you don't want to make a big deal out of nothing in that atmosphere, right? So we keep going, still no vehicles following. So then finally I was like, "Hey, Sarge, like, there's nobody following us." And he turned around and he was like, "Oh shit, like, this is a problem." So he called it up, and it felt like as soon as he called it up, I could hear Tom over the comm saying "rolling," and then it was a huge explosion. And I just remember turning around and seeing concrete, big chunks of concrete, like road asphalt, falling all over the place, and it was just like dead silent. It seemed like for like a couple minutes, but it was probably only a couple seconds. and then just absolute chaos. It was like, help has been hit, get out. TCCC, which is Tactical Combat Casualty Care. They're like acting medics kind of thing within the infantry. So they're like, we need all the TCCC to the front. I'm trying to open the door to get the guys out. They get out and they go up to the front, and then we get told over comms that we had 2 VSA, which is vital signs absent, 1 Pri-Alpha and 1 unknown. And someone had been stuck in the vehicle, so we didn't know his state at that time. So then we ended up having to land helicopters for it. And now, because my vehicle's in the rear and we're 2 IC, second in charge, we have to go land the helicopters. So I ended up volunteering to go land the birds, and end up coming back up, and they're like, we need help with the bodies. So I volunteered to go back up, and the first person that I saw was Tom laying on the stretcher. And that was kind of like surreal, I guess, at that time. I don't remember having too much emotion. And then I ended up carrying John Kerwin onto the helicopter, came back, and I remember someone asking me who it was, and I just instantly burst into tears. And we ended up losing John Jones that day as well. He was driving the vehicle. He was the one that was stuck in it. So then we have, on top of all that, we end up landing the birds, get everything sorted out. We have someone else come to exploit the scene. The battle group came in. So now we have to go home. So we turn around. Now I got to search culverts on the way back to the camp, which is like just, it was just a mess after that. And that's kind of the big incident, if you will, for my OSI. And then there's other incidents that happen along the way. We lost our engineers as well. I wasn't there for that one. And then coming back home, I remember going through Cyprus and stuff, but we were kind of drinking more than taking any of the classes that they have for decompression serious. And then I think it was a couple months after I got back, I ended up just drowning in survivor's guilt. And I always had a recurring dream about Tom as well. And I was isolated in Gagetown, away from my family and stuff. And then I was just, I was done with life and tried committing suicide. My roommate actually saved me. And then that's kind of when my whole transition out of the military began, I guess you could say. My family intervened at that point, started trying to get me help. The military, and it's not bashing them or anything, but I was trying to put in compassionate postings to get back home so I could be in Petawawa or something, at least with some family. But being out there by myself, no family or anything, I was doing exactly what Sean was doing, and self-medicating, making things worse, compounding problems. And then that was a problem within the military as well. Then you become an administrative burden. And all of the stuff that you were proud of now looks bad, right? You don't seem like a good soldier anymore. And then I ended up getting in some legal trouble. And then I think that was right around the time when Polly started working for OSIS, and I became Polly's first problem case. And Polly really helped with getting my situation sorted out with my family as well as myself.
So, okay, first of all, Matt and Polly, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. I can't imagine what you have both gone through, and clearly have come out the other side of. So well done on you. Polly, you work for OSIS. Tell us what OSIS is.
Sure. So OSIS,
because it's important for people to know what programs and supports.
So you know, I have a little joke that we're the best kept secret in NATO. I use it. It's funny at times, not at others. But anyway, so it stands for Operational Stress Injury Social Support. So we've actually been around for 19 years. Next year, we'll celebrate our 20th anniversary. We're a joint funded program through D&D and Veterans Affairs. And so we provide peer support from the lived experience piece. So all of our peer support coordinators have been diagnosed with an operational stress injury and are well enough to work and give back. And all of our family peer support coordinators have lived with or live with someone with an operational stress injury. So when I say we provide peer support, it's, you know, one-to-one, meeting peers where they're at. So, you know, whether they're at the beginning of the journey, the middle of the journey, whether they're just looking for resources, help navigating the system, just need someone to talk to. Um, and then we provide group support as well. So we have groups, we're a national program, so we're right across Canada. Um, and really the cornerstone of our program is confidentiality. So whatever's said to us, we're not clinicians. We don't have notes. You know, we're meeting you for a coffee, or we're, you know, having a group session. On the family side, we do a lot more of psychoeducation, because families really need to understand what's going on, because you know what you see is this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? That's how I used to describe my husband. I never knew who was getting out of bed in the morning. Was he going to be in a good mood? Was he going to be angry? Were the kids going to do something at dinner and he was going to punch a hole in the wall? Like, what was going to happen? I didn't know, right? So um, when you can come together in a community of people and not be judged for that, because you know when you're talking to your friends or your family, they want to protect you, right? They're and that's normal. And it's not, I'm going to say, normal to act like that. However, when you have PTSD and your anger is, you know, just you can't control it, you haven't had the tools yet, or you know, you are self-medicating, it just can go worse from there. So
Mhm.
so we really, you know, try to walk alongside peers, try to encourage the hope. You know, the one thing when I met Matt and his mom, and it was his mom that called, which is, again, we have a lot of family members that call and say, you know, my spouse or my son or daughter, you know, they're, you know, not coming out of the basement, or they're, you know, they're isolating, or they're angry, or whatever it is. But, you know, when Matt's mom called me, we met at the Veterans Affairs office, and she brought Matt with her. And you know, just 10 minutes into hearing his story, I was like, I don't understand why you're still posted there, but you're here in Ontario. Like, it's just things were, and I was like, okay, this is not, I can't do anything about this, but I know someone that can. So the first thing I did was, you know, we work within a team within the transition um, units, transition centers, which is all part of the transition group now. They used to be called joint personnel units, integrated personnel units. Now we're called the transition group, and they help ill and injured. So I was able to get Matt in touch with a service coordinator, and we were able to get him posted to Ontario. And, you know, that just helped alleviate that level of stress of being out of province and that kind of stuff. So
Matt, and I'm going to ask Polly this of you as well. How did you having an OSI affect your relationships in your family? In your, at that point, it was your relationships with your mother and your father that would have been most prominent in your life because you weren't married, correct?
Uh, yeah, that's at that time. Yeah.
you had
I,
a girlfriend.
yeah, I had a girlfriend. I had a girlfriend
And
at the time.
you can talk about your girlfriend relationship too. How did you having an OSI, both undiagnosed and then diagnosed, how did that affect your family unit?
I can definitely say that one of the hardest parts of transitioning into acceptance of what my mental state was is you go through this period of not knowing why. Like, why does children running around me make me feel super anxious and then angry? Like, it's not something that was normal before. Like, before kids running around me, that wasn't an issue. Why do loud noises make me startled and really anxious, and then I don't know how to deal with that, so it's coming out of me behaviorally as angry, and uh, not being able to recognize those things and intervene before it got to a boiling point, that would be the hardest part, because I'm still trying to figure out myself, and I have someone else by me, whether they knew me before or not, going like, I know this isn't you, why are you acting this way? And I don't have the answer either.
Mhm.
Like, it takes a very long time to sort all those things out, all those pieces. and then coming to an acceptance of it, because you kind of have to learn that they're not going away. Like, these are new things, and that's a hard part of acceptance as well. Knowing that, okay, now I recognize it, it won't stop just because I recognize it. I have to learn how to live with it now. And then also trying to, it's hard to say, like, control the environment in a healthy way. Going into a situation knowing if I'm going to be anxious, I can't drink because then I'll overdrink, and then, you know, my quote unquote demons will come out, and then I'll probably say things that I shouldn't or act a way that I shouldn't towards someone. So having these game plans in place, but it takes a very long time to get there. And some people don't have patience for that, I guess. And it's understandably so. Why should they have to deal with the repercussions of the experiences that I've had, right? I don't know if that makes sense.
Right.
Makes total sense.
No, it does. And Polly, how did your husband's OSI impact your family? And you said that you had young children at the time.
So my kids were about 4 and 6 when he was diagnosed. So you know, he missed out on a lot of events because, you know, he couldn't do crowds or you know, even family events for that. You know, he wouldn't last very long at them, or didn't go to them, or was too depressed to get up off the couch and, you know, to motivate himself. So it was difficult. I mean, you know, I felt like a single parent in a 2-parent family for many years. And, you know, for myself, I had a counselor fairly early on when my husband was hospitalized for a suicide attempt. And she talked to me about grief. And I think it's one of the things that I hold as a turning point for myself, because she said, you know, you really need to grieve those expectations of the husband was going to be, the father you want him to be, the life that you had envisioned. You know, I mean, I think I was 28 when he was diagnosed, right? So it really was eye-opening for me, because I never looked at it that way. But when I did, I was able to process it a little bit more and start to sort of manage my expectations. And I really just dove into any books or knowledge, or, you know, saying I need help too. Like, how do I deal with them? It's great that he has doctors to talk to him, but I need somebody to talk to him. I need somebody for my kids to see, you know, so I really tried to sort of go into that advocate role.
That's amazing. Okay, I need to run to the washroom because that's what I have to do. Because that's what happens when you have a bladder the size of a lima bean. But what I would like for you to discuss is, I would like for the two of you to tell the individuals who are watching how the two of you met, and Matt, how you started to make your recovery working with OSIS, because I think that's a really incredible resource. And then I want to come back, Matt, and talk to you about helping heroes heal. And I apologize because, like I said, my bladder is about this big, so I'll be back.
Well, do you want to start, Polly? I mean,
well, sure. Well, I mean, I think we chatted about it. You know, I met you in 2011. We got you kind of started there, and I worked with your family.
Yeah, I mean, so I can touch on how OSIS helps too. I remember doing the groups, the peer support groups. Some of the biggest things for me was going in and realizing that there's other guys feeling the exact same way, or going through some of the same stuff. And I have a friend that calls it celebrity syndrome, where you always think that everything's about you and it's only me who acts this way and I'm the only one that thinks this way and stuff like that. And that was kind of the big help with OSIS for me. But then there's the family side too that I don't think I really appreciated back then. Probably because I was so self-consumed, and the educational piece with OSIS, and like you were mentioning with families and stuff. I mean, you were doing family group nights, right? Like going out to restaurants and stuff like that. And yeah, I don't know what else to say really. I thought it was hilarious how you said that I was your first what was it, not problem case, but
it's true, you were. I can validate that for you. You were. Yeah. but I mean, I liked that we were able to come together as a group to help you with the staff and stuff like that. I mean, I know you didn't love us at all the time. I'm glad that, we can look back at that and kind of go, that was then and this is now. And, um, like I've said to you before, seeing you sort of come out the other side, and the hope and the peer support that you're doing on a regular basis, just within your own network of friends and stuff, and to see the growth that you've done is hugely rewarding for me. And I just feel blessed that, I was on the journey with you. And I think, the one thing that you said is, that's the biggest thing with OSIS, is people don't realize, you think you're on this island by yourself, and you're the only one that's experiencing it. And when you do get into that group format, which can be scary at times, people think it's like a therapy group. It's not. It's a peer support group. And it just opens up, it just validates that, yeah, I'm not the only one. Like, I yelled at my kids, I feel like a bad mother, I have guilt, I have this, and similar things on the veteran side of things. And it just validates that you're not alone, and you're not this terrible person. You're dealing with some demons right now, and there's a lot of resources. And I think there's a lot of resource um, giving that goes on within our OSIS network as well.
No, no.
I apologize for that. I don't take it personally. I legitimately almost didn't make it down the aisle for my wedding. So this is a very civil, like a very not a rare occurrence. In fact, anytime I travel anywhere with our CEO Rick Seaborg, he like shakes his head because he's so embarrassed because I run to the bathroom like 15 times. So thank you for
That's okay.
Thank you for carrying on.
We filled the time.
Yeah. You did. So thank you. I want to know, simply because we are a family foundation, what are Polly? I'm going to ask you as somebody who's part of OSIS. And I'm going to ask you as somebody who's part of a family who has with somebody with an OSI. And Matt, I'm going to ask you as also part of a family, what are some things that a family member can do or family members can do to support somebody who has an OSI, who's suffering from an OSI?
So I would say, the biggest piece is educate yourself as to what the diagnosis is. If under that umbrella, is it an OSI? Is it PTSD? And really understanding that you don't need to know the traumatic events. So, Matt was, I commend you that you can speak about it, Matt. And some people can't. And some family members think they need to know all of those details, but you really don't. What you need to know is, if they're having a bad day, that they can say to you, today's not the day that I can pick the kids up after school. And you can say, okay, honey, to sort of have a little bit of open communication, and work together as a team. I mean, again, it's really difficult, and we had to find out the hard way, but um, him getting individually counseled, me getting individual counseling, but sort of at some point coming together to talk about things so that we could understand. I could better understand his triggers, or I could tell him what I was observing, and not being a nagging wife, but just trying to say, maybe if we tried it this way. So like Matt says, like, now we have plans. I mean, even now Sean's doing great. He's still continuing on his journey, and he's open to different treatments, but we still have plans sometimes when we're going to big events, because there's still that anxiety that comes up. And sometimes it's just having the backup plan. We never have to use it, but it lessens everybody's anxiety. But the biggest thing for me is really communication with family members, and having the family members included as much as possible within the treatment and your wellness journey.
And Matt, how do you feel like your family supported you?
How do I feel like they've supported me? Oh, geez, they've done so many different things over the years. Like, from my dad literally dropping everything when he found out that I had a suicide attempt, to literally dropping everything, getting in his truck and driving to New Brunswick, like in an instant. But I mean, they've been very accepting. But I will say that they've also given me very tough love. Like, when they realize that I'm in a bad spot where I'm not willing to seek help or acknowledge that I'm in a rough spot, they'll withdraw now because they know that there's nothing that they can do. And it kind of goes to what Polly said. Like for me, communication is everything. I'll say we, for me, I'll speak for myself. If a situation isn't going well, I'll use avoidance like you wouldn't believe, however I need to, whether it's substance, whether it's aggression, or just being extremely passive.
Even to this day, Matt, you find even to this day that's your coping mechanism?
Not anymore because I have the communication piece, but while going through it, I would always find a way, like even if I needed the downtime, like Polly was saying, or I can't go get the kids or anything like that, I would then use substances because then it makes it, in my mind, it was like, then they'll understand that I need downtime. If I'm hungover, then it makes sense that he's going to be in bed all day. But that obviously compounds other problems, right? Mm-hmm. So now if I can express that and go, I've had around Remembrance Day, maybe I was having a rough time, and being able to communicate that, then it makes it easier for them to understand they're not going to be on me as much. Where sometimes it just seems like I'm being lazy or something, right? But maybe there's more to it. So acceptance from my parents and family, I think, even my wife now, is the biggest thing that I've had in communication.
Mm-hmm. I have a question coming in. We have Denise watching from Winnipeg. So hi, Denise. Denise is asking to Matt. Matt, was it hard for you to come to terms with your diagnosis?
I don't know about the diagnosis itself. I think the hardest part was coming to terms that I was losing my career. When we would go through Cyprus and decompression and stuff, you always get told that if you say you're having some issues, your career won't halt. But unfortunately, at that time, that is exactly what happened. As soon as you said that you're having some issues and they put you on a temporary category, which is a medical thing, your career would literally stop. And that's kind of the first stepping stone into getting released. So I think that was the hardest part. I knew that there was something wrong. Like I knew that I was going depressed. I couldn't get it on my own head. So it was, in a sense, getting the diagnosis was a relief, but then I had a whole new set of problems to deal with because of that.
Mm-hmm. Polly, when Matt and I talked about his experience with what was JPSU, it seemed like there weren't a lot of resources available to CAF members who are experiencing an OSI. But this was already, what are we talking about, 10 years ago, Matt?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was in 2000.
It was 2011 you would have started. So yeah.
Okay, so about 10 years ago. Now, my understanding is that if you're in what is now known as the transition unit, there are more resources available to try to set an individual up for success. Can you speak to that at all, Polly, in terms of your education?
Sure. So there's when someone's posted in, there's a platoon side and then there's a service side as well. So the platoon side, meaning that because if you're posted in there, you're still serving, right? But you're on a temporary or a permanent category, as Matt was saying. So depending on what are your and Matt, I'm losing the word, but what you can do, like your restrictions. Thank you. So it depends. So really it's trying to keep them still active, whether it's active within their own life, or whether there's some volunteering or something that they can do to stay active, or maybe they can are still working part-time within a position. That's not always the case, but that's the hopeful part. And then again, Veterans Affairs as well is part of the transition center. So again, taking on and getting people's paperwork started prior to them getting out of the military so that they have a smoother exit and the paperwork is all done. And then OSIS is part of that. And then we also have a family liaison officer, which is a social worker that works with the families in the clinical sense.
Diagnosed with an OSI and you get posted into the transitional unit, does that automatically mean that you're on your way out of service, or is there an ability to go?
I can't totally answer that, but I mean, I would say now, there is more looking at retention. Can the person get to a point where they're well enough to go back in? It has been done. but I can't speak to, everyone's case is unique. But really, we're trying to sort of just again wrap around that service so that instead of everyone working in silos, we're
Mhm.
all working as a team together with the people. Um, but like I would say, and I think Matt mentioned it, people have to be willing to accept the help as well,
Mhm.
right? So again, sometimes depending on where they are or if they're angry with the military because they don't want to get out, that could be a barrier that they're putting up as well, so they're not maybe utilizing the services to their full potential. um, but I would say that really there are a lot of services out there. There is some gaps, but I just say just keep trying, and
Mhm.
you're going to meet people. I mean, Matt is fantastic now at, he'll send me a text and say, Polly, I don't know the answer to this question. I don't know if you can help this person, but I'm sending them your way, and so really it's just about networking and getting the people to the right service that they
And
may or
part
may
of
not
the part of
need.
it is letting people know that services like OSIS exist. And speaking of services, we're almost out of time
Yeah.
now. But Matt, I want to talk about Helping Heroes Heal. Tell me,
Mhm.
tell me what Helping Heroes Heal is and how you got to this point, how you developed it.
Helping Heroes Heal is basically a peer support that's been created and utilizing sports and entertainment activity as outings and stuff like that to bring a community together. Uh, Quick backstory: my fire team partner, after we lost our guys, was Corporal James McMullen, and he ended up losing his battle of PTSD in 2011. And then, which is around the time that Polly and I met. And then I started seeing all these different peer support groups. Soldier On is another one that was
Mhm.
remarkable for me, going on these different sporting activities. December 13th, I want to say 2013, was the first time that on that day I didn't realize the day that it was and spend like as an absolute mess. And it was because I was on a Soldier On hockey camp.
Mm.
Same with Wound Warriors Canada. They were doing all, they do like the tribute to your service and stuff. And then you meet so many cool people that I consider great friends to this day that we share a lot of the same stuff, obviously. So it's just building this community. So Helping Heroes Heal, Soldier On with Invictus Games, they started getting a lot of recognition and a lot more applications. And I would have friends reach out just saying, I didn't get onto it. How did you get on? And I'd always say, keep on trying. Obviously, they're getting more and more traction, and more. It's great that people are reaching out, but there's other people that could obviously use some more help. So we're nowhere near that level, but we just try and like network and find opportunities for guys to get out and golf or play hockey, stuff like that. So it was kind of seeing what's already been going on and just trying to continue it, just like another piece of the puzzle.
Is Helping Heroes Heal, is it Ontario based? Is it national? Tell us how people can find you, participate, come to you.
Yeah, helpingheroesheal.ca. And right now we've been more Southern Ontario than anything. A lot of golf in the Toronto area every summer. We're looking to try and keep on doing more. We're looking at trying to do a camping trip to Blue Mountain this winter. COVID obviously puts a damper on all that stuff.
Yep.
But I mean, if someone in New Brunswick was like, I want to rent some ice time for some veterans, do you have $200 to rent the ice? Absolutely, we'd do it. It wouldn't matter where we were. If you had something like that you wanted to do, we just started doing it in Kingston for someone out there so that they could have ice time too, because they saw we were doing it here. And obviously, you don't want to make the 3.5 hour trek each way just for an hour of ice time. So, yeah, Helping
Matt,
Heroes.
who is Helping Heroes Heal for? Tell us who's involved with that and who can benefit from it.
We have a community of people always helping and networking and stuff. It was co-founded by myself and a friend, Chad, and it's for veterans and first responders. And we don't ask that if you're ill or injured, if you're a veteran or first responder and you want to come out, great. Of course, if you have some situations going on, we can help you more. That would always take precedent. But we don't go and ask anyone to prove anything like that. We try and keep it just building that community, because even if you haven't been diagnosed with an illness or injury, maybe you still want to be a part of that community with other veterans, right? So same with family and friends. We've had a veteran and his son go out golfing a couple times last summer that we paid for. and come to the event as well. We've really realized like Soldier Run's amazing. It's really veteran based, and it's great for a stepping stone with other veterans. But if you want to get back into society, you're not always going to have just veterans, I don't think. And that was a hard part for me too, is realizing that I need to meet the civilian friends as well. So bringing the family and friends piece into it, we've been trying to do more and more just to grow that community of support.
That's tremendous.
And I'd just like to say thanks to Matt, because he got my husband out on the ice, who hasn't skated in like 10 to 15 years. And he's out playing shinny with Matt and the guys this year. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's tremendous. We are out of time. I want to thank the two of you so dearly for being so candid and raw and honest. I think that when other families are watching this and they are themselves possibly in a family where somebody has been diagnosed with an OSI, sometimes it sounds like they're not really sure where to turn. So the two of you show that there is community out there. There are supports out there. Polly, your husband, and Matt, you are both clearly success stories in terms of how one can overcome this. So well done to the both of you. And thank you again so much for sharing your experiences with me today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. And we'll do it again, because I have about 15 other questions I want to ask you, but we're out of time.
We'll come back.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.